and constantly navigating between those rivers and trying to figure out if you had to jump over or if you could walk over, and it was quite the journey on the way back.
Yeah, I saw you coming back quite transformed. The northern lights shine on every turn of my head to sudden human movement. I now know where my gaze aims at in encounters, where my insecurity hooks into others' looks, where my smile, roughly and secretly stretched at the edge of my mouth, is born every time my line crosses another line. In these few minutes, I see people becoming patches of color in movement. In these few minutes, my movements in the room already carry the wide, bright evidence of presence from point A to point B, both unveiling my intentions, desires, thoughts, feelings, needs.
Movement. Synonyms for movement: act, action, change, development, evolution, exercise, flow, migration, move, operation, progress, shift, advance, agitation, alteration, deed, displacement, dynamism, flight, flux, gesture, journey, journeying, locomotion, maneuver, mobility, motility, movableness, passage, progression, regression, shifting, steps, stir, stirring, transit, transplanting, undertaking, velocity, wandering, changing, evolving, moving, operativeness, roaming, transferal, translating, voyaging. Presence. Perception of the being, occupancy, existence, being, occupation, potentiality. In the time I live in, presence is experiencing an objective duality. We exist in the physical world while existing in the digital network. Our digital representation has come to a point of real-time description, actuation, and anticipation of life that is very much possible to talk about a coexistence and complementarity of the two aspects. If we define a human life based on its actions, thoughts, expectations, freedoms, rights, obligations, realizations, testimonies, and documentation, this dual coexistence is more evident. Coexistence doesn't mean that we are past the point of being able to have a human life without technology, but the overall behaviour of our contemporary society makes the question obsolete or fully possible only within a niche. Moreover, society is adopting the digital presence or its documentation as fundamental tools and vocabulary for its own structuring and evolution, so that the question of surveillance is obsolete too, while it is relevant to address the how and why aspects of it. The immediate evidence of this assumption is geolocalization, which is the attachment of geolocation to an object or person, animal, and so forth. We usually think of movement as a spatial translation, disconnected from biological change. Our cells cover the life cycle in the space of our movement that must therefore have a coexistent meaning for the cells as time does.
If there is that much space, is it for me to act in it, to live in it, to be present?
The movement, therefore, has other meanings that touch the limits of existence to expand them. So, GPS tracking contains biodigital information. Also, how does movement in its dual representation address meanings of it? The nomadic route distributes men and animals in an open, indefinite, non-communicating space. The digital nomadic path instead contains information and connections, contains temporality and digital biogenetics. Why do we talk about digital nomadism? Because the first mapping of space takes place thanks to the nomadic activity linked to the necessary knowledge of the territory for the flocks, attribution of the symbolic and aesthetic values of the territory. In this case, I'm talking about the attribution of aesthetic and symbolic values to the digital space. The absence of stable points requires the ability to create your own map at any time. Vast digital virgin lands are found instead on the activation of the user as lands excavated in time and meaning. Which meanings? Who is attributing these meanings? Are we able to address the question on who, when, and where these meanings are being created? Can we perceive ourselves as coders, ourselves of the collected big data founding new realities?
I have come out of silence to be space. During the time in Scalanes, I've called out every single name of my cracks, my shadows, my wounded lands and bleeding crusts. In the silence, I was the silence. It can be surprising, even slightly unsettling, to wake up to a vast, digital, infinite space. No echoes. During days on the coast, I was expanding, a new mapping coded in the starved sleep, new tones and shapes. Now that we're back inside, I stand wearing this net skin, come across open lines. I am new and fragile in this skin. I guess what I mean with this is I'm honored to stand cracking and ready again in this space with you all. Please come through.